Welcome to Getting Started with IntelliTrack, an ongoing webinar series focusing on the basics of our IntelliTrack software. The goal of this series is to help new and existing customers get up and running quickly and easily. Hello everyone, my name is Noel McKeon and I am the Business Development Manager for IntelliTrack. IntelliTrack is the simplest way to manage your inventory. This session will focus on how to best create and manage assets in IntelliTrack. The ability to work with assets is available as long as you have the proper licensing for either our IntelliTrack Assets or IntelliTrack Inventory plus IntelliTrack Assets products. The Assets feature can be added to any existing IntelliTrack inventory account, so please feel free to contact us if you have any questions or would like to receive more information about adding asset functionality to your account. So during the webinar today, we will first define what an asset is. We'll also define what an asset item is, and then provide a hands-on demonstration of setting up and managing an asset in IntelliTrack. Before we continue, I'd like to point out that there are a few features that I will mention today, like depreciation, importing records, and renaming user-defined fields that won't be shown in detail during today's webinar, but rather would be covered in depth in future upcoming webinars. By definition, an asset is a useful or valuable thing. An asset typically has a value and unique attributes that need to be tracked. An asset may be an expensive piece of equipment, help generate revenue, be used by employees for specific tasks or jobs, require periodic maintenance or calibration, and depreciate over time with a useful lifespan and specific salvage value. Common examples of assets include things like office furniture, tools, vehicles, laptops, desktops, servers, telephones, computer equipment, even people or employees can be treated as assets. Now let's define another concept that is critical to being able to properly set up an asset within IntelliTrack, and that concept is an asset item. An asset item is the parent record that is first created within IntelliTrack to allow the system to organize or group individual assets together by commonly shared attributes, things like item number, description, manufacturer, depreciation class, category, etc. An asset item only exists within IntelliTrack when the asset checkbox, which you see a little screenshot in front of us right now, when that asset checkbox is enabled for the given item, and that happens on the Add Edit Item form. So now that we have defined some key concepts about assets, let's move over to an IntelliTrack Assets account, and I would like to demonstrate how to manually set up an asset and talk about managing assets within the system. Okay, so the first step would be logging into your account, and I am in a demonstration account here for purposes of the webinar. And to create an asset, we first have to actually create an asset item. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. And this is done by first selecting Manage Items from the navigation menu, and then clicking on the Add Item button in the top right of the screen. You'll see that I already have 3 sample items, asset items created in this account, so we're going to create a 4th. And I'm going to again do that by clicking on the Add Item button there in the top right. And this opens up the Add Item form, and we can begin by populating a unique item number. This can be the same item number or part number you use when ordering an asset from your supplier, or it can be a unique value that you create on your own. The field, it is alphanumeric, so it accepts both letters and numbers. Just do keep in mind, remember that it must be a unique value. So we're going to keep it simple for now, and we're going to use laptop laptop 01. The alternate number can be used to store your vendor supplier part number or simply leave it blank. It's not a required field, and that's what we'll do in this case. Next, the description field, it is very important, and I would suggest to you, while it's not required, it is critical that you populate it with a meaningful value, a meaningful description, as this field will be displayed on various views and reports elsewhere within your IntelliTrack Assets account. We'll go ahead and type in Dell Latitude laptop for our description. We can populate the model, the manufacturer, and the category with whatever's appropriate simply by selecting the drop-down values that are predefined. And I would note to you that I set these up earlier. You do that by navigating to the Manage Lookups option in the menu bar within your IntelliTrack account. There is a comment field. This can be used to store additional details about the asset item. It's a lengthy text box that can store quite a bit of data, meaningful text information that you might need to store. For now, though, we'll go ahead and leave that blank. We do have the option to attach a picture for an item. Simple enough to do. You simply click Browse, get to the picture that you want to use and attach to this item. We'll go ahead and browse to our laptop, click Open, and then finally click the Upload Pictures button. It attaches a picture of this item to the item definition, this asset item record within IntelliTrack. Because we are setting up an asset item and not a regular item, the need to track or worry about these three options here, serial number, lot, or expiration date, don't apply. These fields are used for setting up a regular item that would be used as part of consumable inventory. Again, not applicable to an asset item when you're dealing with asset inventories, which is what we're focused on here. So now we've come to one of the most important fields on this screen, and that is the asset checkbox. You must enable this checkbox to make sure the system knows to treat this as an asset item, which will in turn allow us to set up individual assets that will be tied to this asset item. So think of a parent-child relationship. We need to define this and create the parent before we can ever have go through the process of creating the children, the asset records that we're going to associate with it. We can now choose the depreciation class that this asset item should be tied to, which determines how depreciation will be calculated for this asset item. The depreciation classes is simply selected from the drop-down list, and I set those up again ahead of time using the Assets Depreciation Classes menu option. So let's move over to the second tab for user-defined fields, which provides us with 24 UDFs that can be used to store additional information, data that might be required for our asset item. All of these field labels on this tab, and in fact, any field within your IntelliTrack account, can actually be renamed simply by choosing Tools, Custom Titles from your menu option. Because this is an asset item, the next two tabs, Units of Measure and Reorder Points, don't really apply. These features are more appropriate for when you are creating, again, items that are consumable in nature. So then lastly, the Checkout Rental Setting tab is useful if you're dealing with a rotational asset that will be checked out and checked back in periodically. This tab is where you would define the rental duration and cost, as well as when the asset is due back to be checked in after it has been checked out. For now, we'll go ahead and leave these blank as they're not required, but do be aware that that's where you populate and enter in that information. So we're done for now creating this asset item. We'll come down to the bottom here and click the Save button to save this as a brand new asset item in the system. We can see that it's successfully appeared in our Manage Items screen, and here it is as the brand new item number. So the next step, now we want to add individual assets to the system. If we choose Assets, Assets Data, and look at our Assets Data screen, you'll notice that there are actually no assets created in this IntelliTrack Assets account just yet. There are several ways to accomplish adding assets to the system. From the asset data screen that we're on, we could actually click the Add Asset button up in the top right corner of the screen. New assets can also be imported using the import-export utility. Very useful if you're looking to load up data in a bulk manner from some sort of electronic file that you might already have access to. You can also use our IntelliTrack mobile app to induce your inventory by using the assets inventory transaction. And right now I've got form 3 displayed, which is what I'm showing on the screen. This is the best form that's really optimized for adding or inducing new assets into the system. And you can choose form 3 by going to the main screen of the IntelliTrack mobile app, selecting Tools, Preferences, the Assets tab, and then choosing form 3, finally clicking Save, which is the checkmark button down in the bottom right. The other forms will allow you to actually also add assets, but again, this is the form really designed to set up the location, item, lock the condition, and then loop on whichever fields you need to. For example, asset number, serial number, assignee in this case. And then finally, new assets can be added from the Manage Item screen, which is what we'll look at in depth today. That's the method we're going to use here to go through the process of adding assets. So first we need to make sure we choose Manage Items from our navigation menu. Then we select the Add Assets button for the corresponding asset item we want to work with. We're going to go ahead and add assets to the Laptop 01 asset item that we just created. So I'm going to come over here. We're going to hover over the Add Assets button. We're going to click on that, and that opens up the Assets form. And up in the top right, we're able to click on the Add button, which opens up the Add Edit Assets form. And we start out by providing a unique asset number which will act as the license plate for this asset in the system and will identify this asset during all subsequent transactions. It's common for customers to use a roll of pre-printed labels sometimes to actually generate this asset number, and they'll record that value here in this field. It's also possible to manage this manually and type in your data sequentially. And then you can also choose to have IntelliTrack automatically generate a unique asset number, which would then auto-increment by 1 every time you create a new asset in the system. That option is enabled and configured under your division options in the system. I actually have that feature turned off, so I'm going to go ahead and enter in a unique value of 2001 for this new asset. We can input and store the asset's serial number as the next field, so I can go ahead and populate a serial number. We can also add the asset to inventory by selecting the site and location using the drop-downs. And the data in these fields is pre-populated. So I'm going to go ahead and select Building 1 followed by Office 101. That data is immediately validated. We make sure that those are appropriate sites and locations that I, as the user who's logged in doing this, has access to. And then next we'll populate the assignee field. I'll go ahead and choose Tom Smith. That list was pre-populated using Manage Assignees menu option. There is another comment field that we can store, again, lengthy text information that we may need to track about this asset. There is another picture field which we can use and upload an image of this specific asset. So you simply choose Browse, select the file you want to use, then open, and finally click the Upload Picture button. It's the exact same process that we used earlier when we attached a picture to the asset item we created. This is simply unique to this specific asset. Another set of user-defined fields are available to us on the User-Defined Fields tab, 24 of them. These can again be used to store additional data that might be required for our asset. And again, these fields here can be, the labels can be renamed so that you manage what you're calling each field header and store data that's meaningful to you. That's done from Tools, Custom Titles, menu option. The warranty tab allows us to populate and track the following fields. The purchase date, which is a calendar control that I can drop down. I'm going to go ahead and actually backdate it. The purchase cost, which will tell us how much we actually purchased this asset for. The warranty expiration date, and I'm going to actually bump it out a year. The condition, and that's a drop-down list that's pre-populated, as is the account that we're going to associate this asset with. Again, a pre-populated drop-down field. The maintenance and calibration tab is leveraged to help the system help you track when maintenance and calibration is due on a specific asset. So we could say that every 90 days we want to bring that asset in for maintenance. Every year we want to bring it in for calibration. System will generate reports and help you manage when that asset has to come in and when the next time it's due for maintenance or calibration. The checkout tab is really for informational purposes only. If the asset is checked out, this tab will show you the date and time it was checked out, when it is due back, and the assignee it's checked out to. Extremely useful when this is a tool crib or a rental situation or a rotational asset of any kind that's going out to an employee. We have fire, police, job sites that use this information to great benefit for their organization so that those expensive assets don't go missing. They know who's responsible and they can get them back in. The depreciation tab lets us populate the fields needed to help us track and calculate depreciation for the asset. You'll notice that the top part is actually already filled in, and that's because it's pulled from the asset item and the depreciation of IT equipment, the class that we associated this asset's laptop 01 depreciation class with. We only need to fill in the in-service date, and again I'm going to backdate that value, and the salvage value in order to calculate the depreciation. So now when we select the Calculate Depreciation button, depreciation is calculated automatically by the system, very quickly and easily. Depreciation calculations, I'll point out, can also be run in a bulk manner by using the Assets Depreciation Classes Calculate Depreciation for All Classes button. And then finally, the Documents tab, which is used for storing additional user images, user manuals, warranty cards, receipts, specification sheets, things like that. Very useful to attach additional documents to your assets. You're actually able to attach up to 5 documents per asset, and each must be no larger than 50 megabytes in size. Now that we're done, we simply click the Save button in the bottom right of the screen, and we'll come back to see that asset listed. Everything's validated. There it is, Asset 2001. And very quickly, let me go ahead and add a second asset just so you can see the process a little bit quicker. I'm not going to worry about all the detailed fields. We're just going to capture a couple of key ones, which would include the asset number, the site, and the location value for where we're going to put this. We'll put this in a different location, save it, and we now have successfully created 2 new asset records in our account. In this example, both assets 2001 and 2002 are tied to the asset item we created earlier called Laptop 01. So this gives you a really good visual representation of the asset item, Laptop 01, which again is the parent, and then the individual assets, 2001 and 2002, which you could consider the children records tied to the parent record, Laptop 01. And that's how you manually set up an asset within IntelliTrack. Again, remember the other methods I outlined earlier for creating assets in IntelliTrack, including the import-export utility, which is useful when you want to import data in bulk. That utility will be covered in greater depth in an upcoming webinar. I'm going to close that screen, and I just want to simply wrap things up here by showing you this asset data screen, which earlier when I showed it to you was blank, is now populated with meaningful information because we've gone through the process of setting up 2 assets in the system. During the session, we defined what an asset is and what an asset item is, and showed the relationship between the two. Additionally, we have shown how to manually set up an asset within IntelliTrack Assets, and we discussed many of the different features and fields that the asset feature set offers. If you have any comments or questions, please contact us directly by calling 888-583-3008, option 8, or email us at sales@intellitrack.com. We welcome all customer feedback and look forward to answering any questions you may have. Please visit the resources section of IntelliTrack.com to register for our other upcoming webinars. And thank you for attending today.